Here is the digital lighting guide. Just right click on it, save image. That will give you the big giant poster JPEG that you can use. Right. Just like with the other projects, make sure when you open your scene you assign the Pixar surface to it. What color should the material be? 50% gray. So make sure when you assign the material, go into the diffuse color, click on the color swatch, change the value to 0.5. That's 50% gray. Okay, your lights are all going to be RenderMan lights. Again, IPR is going to be your friend until you're ready to do a final production render. Because you want to be able to move those lights around, be able to get quick feedback. So you've got two choices today. You've got either the Cornell Rabbit or a small little still life we have. Cornell Rabbit's named for Cornell University. They did a lot of firsts in computer graphics. They've been working in computer graphics since the 1970s. They did one of the very first cloud point scans, and that is the rabbit. So if you click on the rabbit, the mesh is solid. It's like solid polygons. It turns solid green. That's because every single one of those little poly points was a point when they scanned it. And then all they did was triangulate it based around there. Edge flow, not that great. It wasn't done for that purpose. It was just done to be able to get a digital version of an object. 3D volume scan. So the details there, not the prettiest geometry, but it works. And then simple still life. Couple of props laid out with some lighting. Now, when you go to tackle this project, you will be working on a single light at a time. Each one of these scenes uses at least 3 lights. In fact, the rabbit uses 3, the still life uses 4. What's that? The rabbit uses 3 lights. We'll see. Take a look. All right, so what we're going to do is let's take a look at, since the question came up, let's take a look at the reference. Take a look at the rabbit first. So in your project download, you're going to get your 3 folders like normal. There's a Maya scene file, there's a target template, and then there are 2 subfolders in the reference, one for the rabbit, one for the still life. Just like with the digital lighting guide, I'm going to give you guys positional light or a positional breakdown, so you know where the lights are roughly in relationship to the geometry. All right, so there's the rabbit. Key light, fill light, rim light. And there's an overhead shot. Just so you can see. What's that? You have a question? Now, in addition to the positional guides, I'm going to give you a breakdown of what each light is doing individually. And then a final version of what the light looks like, or all lights together. So this is your first key light reference. What position?
45-ish.
Yeah, 45-ish to which side?
Correct.
To the right. I didn't know 45-ish. Well, maybe 45-ish, maybe a little more. Hard to tell. But you can see the shadows definitely point this way. So it's not completely side-light. Based on the 2 previous positional references, you can get an idea for the size and where it is in relationship to the subject. So you're going to work on this first. This is the most important light. Position it. What kind of light do you think you'll use? Yeah, probably a rectangle, since that's what the shape is. That would be a good guess. Rectangle light. Put it in for positionality. Start working with the intensity. Start rendering it out. Once you get about 85–90% of the way there with this light, I would recommend that you stop and work on the next light. Why? Because you can drive yourself crazy trying to nitpick every pixel in the scene to try and get it perfect. The idea is you want to do this in passes. You want to get the light in there, get it positioned, get it as close as you can on the first pass. Put the light on a separate layer, turn that layer off, go to the next light. This way you can start to work as a whole. And then you're not just doing all your time with one light and then realize I don't have much time left for the other two. Just keep going over in passes. Believe it or not, it works because you'll come back with a fresh set of eyes. There's nothing worse than looking at the same thing over and over and over again. You start to see things that aren't there, and you're just your own worst critic. I know. I'm my own worst critic. So, get that. Get about 85–90% of the way there. Throw it on a layer, turn it off. Work on the fill light. Kind of hard to see, but if you're in GOTA training, it's probably a little bit easier to see. Fill light, not very intense at all. Which direction?
45.
Yeah, somewhere on the left side, 45–30. So which light here would represent that? This one. Yep. Again, that's another rectangle light. Alright, so 2 rectangle lights, then your rim light. Rim light would be what kind of light? This light, yeah. It's behaving like a spotlight. How do we know? Well, you can go back and take a look at the shape. There's a disc right there. All right, notice anything about this light? Let's analyze it while we're here. Maybe a little soft, but certainly a little harder than the other 2 lights. That one's a lot of gradient. There's a lot of gradient there, so a little harder. Tells you it's a small light. Plus, we're also using it. The disc is a spot, so we've got it focused. The rabbit's feet. If you have light here, shouldn't we have light on the backdrop? Why don't we have light on the backdrop? What's that?
It's a very narrow cone with a lot of softness to the gradient.
That could be. Cone angle? Could be, yeah. It's not linked to the surface, yes. We actually unlinked it from the backdrop, which is, I think, the same thing what you're saying. Yeah, we just unlinked it. That way the light does not see the backdrop. We unlinked it. That way we don't get unwanted light patterns, unwanted shadow. Because quite frankly, if we had this light linked up to the backdrop, we would have a light pattern. We would also have shadow from the rabbit coming in the opposite direction of the light. So, that's part one. The second part is, this is the back leg of the rabbit. There's no light here, but why is there light here? Angle? Say that again.
The light's close enough to where it's enveloping the rabbit.
Okay, light's close enough, it's enveloping the rabbit. Yep. One thing though, you have to keep in mind is, whenever you have a light, it always casts shadows as well. So normally, this back leg would be shadowed by the body of the rabbit. This is an instance where we turned off shadows in the light. So the light did not cast shadows. So we're actually getting kind of a kick light, an accent light, just by turning shadows off. And again, this little highlight right here, it's one of those things where you miss it if it's not there, but you can't put your finger on what's missing if it's not there. So when all the lights are together, that little bit of accent just makes that shape pop out a little bit more. So this is a combination of all lights turned on together. But like I said, work on this in passes. Get this about 85%. Go on to the next one. Put it on a layer, hide the layer, work on the fill light. Get that 85, 90%. Then work on the rim light. Things to notice on the rim light, besides unlinking from the backdrop, turning off shadows, notice the coverage of the leg, front edge of the body, the ears, the back. Those are the shapes to look for. Landmarks, if you will. That'll tell you if you've got too much light on the body or not enough. And again, position, you can get an idea of where we positioned it. Another nice thing about having the RenderMan lights is you can see exactly where it's pointed at. So individually, key light, fill light, rim light, then all lights together. Question. Everybody understand? Yes.
I don't really understand, like, for the rim light, how turning off the shadow helps you with that more.
Take a look. Good question. Alright, so Maya is loaded. I'm going to set my project to project 3. Alright, open up. You're going to have two choices here. You've got the Cornell Rabbit and you've got the still life. You're going to pick one. I'm going to open up the Cornell Rabbit, then after break we'll come back, we'll look at the others. There we go. Oh, all right, yes, get that, get that. All right, there's our friend, our furry nemesis here. So click on him, you can see how dense the mesh is. Yes, lots of poly. But he renders pretty quick, so don't worry about it. All right, let's take a look at the rim light first. Right, when you're working, you can stay in the render cam, but it's probably going to be easier if you go to panels, perspective, go to perspective, and now you can move around in 3D because the render cam is locked. Now, one thing I strongly urge you to not do is try to bring in those positional guides as image plots. They're not meant for that. They're just meant for you to be able to look at and position your light in a rough fashion, okay? Don't try to bring them in and go unit by unit and try to get. You're gonna waste more time doing that than if you just put the light in and aimed it at the rabbit. All right, so let's take a look at the guides. So let's open this one. Let's open them all. All right, so here's my guides. There's my disc light back there. I can get a rough idea of where it is. So pretty simple, right click, go to disc light. This light is going to drop in where? Origin, right? So I'm going to hit W, and there it is. Right there, the rabbit's nesting on it. Just trying to hatch it. Now, one of the easy ways to aim either a rectangle light, a disc light, even a sphere light is to use what shortcut key? T, right, for the interactive manipulator. So now, here's my locator. My light will follow it around. What I want to do is just move this off. I know it's going to be a rim light, so I'm going to roughly position it toward the back. Make sense? Then what I'm going to do is just move my locator here. Position it more or less in the center of the body of the rabbit. That's my subject. I can always move it around later. And now this will orbit around wherever I have it. So let me go over to my guide and see what that looks like. Alright, so it looks like it's got to come closer. What I want to do is see, alright, it looks like it's going right through that one ear, which is roughly about where that is. So let's move it closer. Now I want to take a look at it from here, and I can laugh and say, well, that's probably way too low. Not all that low, but it is definitely at the ground. So let me hit 5. There we go. Yes. Let's get that out of the ground. So what I'm going to try and do is position mine or frame mine roughly to where the reference screenshot was taken. So the camera's a little bit above. Backdrop probably right about there. Something like that. Looks like my light might be a little high. But that's a good place to start. Alright, I'm going to render it out and see what I get. Render from the render cam, that way everybody's happy. Window is huge. Okay, render view not found. Ooh, why is that? Let's see. First off, let's take a look at what are the materials assigned. I broke the first law. I didn't check to see what was assigned to the object. So I'm just going to shift select both of them. What's the shortcut to assign new material? Shift T. Right. Render band, materials, Pixar surface. Now what do I need to do? Okay, adjust the color. Click on the color swatch. Value 0.5. Value at 0.5. Next, will that take care of my problem? What do I have to do? Yes, check render settings. Maya software. It's heresy. So I want to change it from render using Maya software to RenderMan. I'm going to knock my IPR down to 32 just so I can get a quick render out to see what it looks like. Now, when I run the image tool and try to do a render from the render cam, I should not get that error. So anytime you get an error other than IPR memory, right, so let me reset my zoom and pan, and then reset the window. There we go. Also, another thing to do while you're working is what? How about load the reference in? You guys know how to do that, right? Hopefully, you've been doing it for the last 2 projects. In the image tool, go File, Open File, navigate to where you have the reference. I'm working on the rim light, so I want to put in the rim. There we go. So now I can look at mine and go, whoa, wait, that doesn't look anything like that. So now what I need to do is run IPR again and start working with the light. One of the dangers of just clicking on the IPR button is it will not necessarily remember what camera you rendered from. Alright, so I got a couple of things going on here. Get rid of that. I sort of have a little bit of rim light here, but I have this big, soft kind of spill on the floor. Okay, a couple things I can do first. My disc light I want to use as a spotlight. So I need to turn it into a spotlight. How do I do that? Okay, so I need to select the light, go into the attributes, and where do I find the cone? Under Refine, yes, thank you. Under Refine, there's the cone angle. Generally, a good place to start is, you can start at 40 degrees. 40, 45, which is basically half a 90. Start at 45. Why not? Now, don't believe everything you see with IPR. Stop it and restart it. Remember, it lied. Just like mine. All right, so now I've got a cone here. Move it a little bit closer. And let's see what the image tool does. Hopefully not explode. There it is. Alright, so I've got a little bit of light on the ear, got a little bit of light on the side of the head, the chest. A little bit of light on the feet down here. What's the first thing I want to try to adjust? Yeah, let's take a look at the intensity. Position, the direction, close, rough. Intensity, yeah, looks like we need a bit more. So when in doubt, double it. If it's not enough, double it again. it again till you get intensity that's close to what you want. Again, do this in passes. Yes?
How did you get the background so dark?
Because the light is aimed at the rabbit.
My left did the same thing, but mine is still kind of grayish. Not like
Also, did you turn it into a spotlight?
uh,
You have to go in the light attributes, down under refine, and we change the cone angle from 90, which is the default, which will give you a disc light, to 45. Now, 45 might be too large, it might be too small. We're just trying to get everything in there rough.
it's still very grayish.
Make sure your light is aimed at the rabbit, and it is a disc light, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You check both positional references, right? So your light's fairly low, like mine, and then overhead it's aimed at the rabbit, more or less the same position. Do you have any other lights in there? Make sure you've only got one light on. That would be the next thing.
There's a default light. So I just leave
You can hide that. You can just select it in the outliner and do Control H. It should hide that light. Generally, whenever you make a light, that default light should go away, but occasionally, in whatever version of Maya you might have, that's broken like every other version. It's really annoying for shading the light. Because it turns itself on, it doesn't turn itself off. Now, another thing you can do to verify is go into render settings under common, all the way down at the bottom, under render options, you can turn off enable default light. That also should turn it off. Say should, it's fine. Back to the outliner, go back to image tool. Right, so we're still just trying to roughly get it. Are we as bright yet as the reference? Nope. So let's crank it up some more. Now, notice we're getting a lot of light here on the rabbit. That is bounce light coming from global illumination. It's coming off of the floor, bouncing back onto the rabbit. We're not too worried about that yet. We're just interested in trying to get our light to look like this. Let's minimize the impact of the light on the backdrop. This is a case where we want to unlink the light from the backdrop using light linking. Right? Because in our reference, it completely ignores the backdrop. All right, so I'm going to stop IPR because this is a major thing for Maya. I'm going to get upset. And light linking can be found under Windows, Relationship Editor, light linking, light centric. Windows, Relationship Editor, light linking, light centric. Find it? You got it? Okay. So now, since I only have one light in there, it's pretty simple to figure out what I want to select and what I want to unlink from. So I'm going to select my Pixar disc light. Notice that my GeoMaster group is highlighted. So when I click on it on the right side, it highlights everything because it's a glitch in Maya. And what I want to do is uncheck the backdrop. Backdrop is a NURB surface. So I just click on it once and it unhighlights the backdrop. And now my light should, I say should, ignore the backdrop. So now I also got rid of that pesky bounce light off of the backdrop. I like light centric just because it shows me lights on the left. I click on a light, it shows me the geometry. You have to expand the group, and then you unhighlight the backdrop. So far, makes sense? Question? Light linking. Really simple to use, really powerful tool. Like I said, lighting designers in the real world can kill for that. You don't. It's done. It does your bidding automatically. You are Lord Wizard of light linking world. All right, so the shape that I have is actually pretty close to the original. Just look at the left side of the rabbit. One thing you'll notice though is, wait, how do I get extra light on the back here? How do I get extra light? Look at the tail, the back leg. That's the stuff that's missing. That you would normally say he's got another light in there. We got to link up a light to just the rabbit. Now, this is where we cheat. We cheat reality. Why? Because Maya, everything is an illusion. Everything is a lie. The very name Maya itself is Sanskrit for illusion. I'm not kidding. That's the Sanskrit word for illusion, Maya. It is all illusion. So what we do is go under shadows and we turn off enable shadows. So now when I render, watch what happens. Well, of course it may blow up right now, so just bear with me. There we go. All right. So wait. With shadows enabled, all right, so with shadows enabled, the rabbit is self-shadowing the back of his leg. When I turn off shadows, now his body will no longer shadow out the tail, and it will no longer shadow out the back leg. Now, positionally, I'm probably going to have to move this around a little bit. In my reference, I don't have quite as much light going on to the top of the ear as I have. What's that?
We unchecked the unable shadow.
Correct, enable shadow. And that's only for the rim light or the disc light. Does that make sense? So, this is about 85–90% there. What I would recommend is at this point, if this were, all lights, I'd recommend stop at this point, put it on a layer, hide that layer, then go work on another light. Come back with fresh eyes. As you work on each light, hide the other lights or turn off visibility. Work on one light at a time. When you're all done and you've got them as close as you think you can get them, turn all the lights on. Do a quick IPR render to see what the whole thing looks like. If you're in the ballpark and it looks pretty good, go for a production render. Does that make sense? Questions? Yes?
Even with the shadows disabled, what's preventing it from seeing the other back like a little bit?
Let's take a look at the geometry. Yeah. So it goes in, the other part comes out, and that's kind of why we're hidden. All right, good question. Any others? Yes.
Whenever I put my light on its own layer, it seems to disappear when the layer is visible, but come back when the layer is not
Yes.
visible.
I have that trouble too. The only thing I've noticed is if I turn it off and on a couple times, or I'll do something else, I'll come back to it and it'll work right. So let's test that theory. All right, so I don't have IPR running. Also, make sure you don't have IPR running. So I'm going to select my light. Let's go to channel box. Let's create a brand new layer. That'll be my rim light. Hit save. I turn off visibility. Oh, now it's working. Ah, there we go. Still working. Just once you get it off, leave it off. Do something else. Come back to it and see if you can get it to sync up. Sometimes if you save your scene, close out, open up the scene again, it'll be reset. I think it's a glitch somewhere in Maya. Using 17 or 18? Maya 17?
17.
17. Yep, it's still a glitch in 18, I'll have you know. So. Yeah. All right, other question. So key light, same thing for the rabbit, right? You're gonna make a rectangle light, you're gonna position it more or less the same way, start working with it, make sure the rim light's turned off if you guys have done the rim light already. Like I said, do it in passes. Get it about 80, 85, 90% of the way there. Stop, put it on the shelf, put it on a layer, work on the fill. Then go back to the rim and just go in passes. Every time you come back to it, you should have a slightly different perspective, kind of reset your brain, reset your eyes for what you're seeing. That way you don't drive yourself crazy, and you guarantee forward motion. Because as artists, we tend to get stuck on the minutiae, right? Got to make that one thing perfect before we move on to the rest. The hardest thing to do is to just go, it's not perfect, let me go continue on. Can you imagine if Michelangelo was doing the Pieta and he got stuck on a finger? He would never finish the thing. So he's going to rough out the whole thing, come back in passes, smooth it out a little bit more, come back in passes, smooth it out more, start to finish it. You've got to just whittle it down like that. It also gives you a sense of accomplishment. Okay, well, at least I got all the lights in, they're roughed in. That's like more than half of the battle right there. Getting to that point. All right, any other questions before we go on break? All right, let's go on break and come back.